money based on cash
Ideas.
flows. If a cash flow can't work, as a banker, I can't. I'm a relationship manager. And I said, wow. He says, no, now I understand why Zambia is backward.
Yeah.
Because these young people from universities, they understand how to make cash flows. But how do you ask a young man or a woman to say, can you bring a house? Where are they going to get it? Even when you give them a house from a parent, they will say, is this Ambassador Mwamba's child? I mean, it's just something out of this world. So the best resource we have now are the youth. And I always go back to...
Like you were a resource in 1990 and helped the cause. You were privileged to, as soon as the MMD project succeeded and formed government, I think you held pioneering roles. You were energy minister, you were agriculture minister, and finally the first female minister of finance in this country. What were your experiences in those roles?
No,
and did you help transform the country?
First, let me take you back. I hope you have enough time on this platform, because it's a conversation.
Yes, it is. It is.
So,
people
don't know that in the first government, which was announced at Mulungushi, there was no woman. A young lady, thanks to her, I wish I'd found the name. Maybe she can remember what she did. Is the one who appointed me Deputy Minister for Energy. Because after the cabinet was announced, or portfolio was announced, this young lady raised her hand and says, President Chiluba, we have heard all the names of your cabinet, but there's no woman. And then he turned, by the way, there's Edith Nawakwi, who is Deputy Minister for Energy.
You are appointed by the way.
And Kavunda Kayongo is Deputy Minister of Education.
Yes.
I was appointed by the press, thanks. And so the press, when they observe, they change things. But how did I get there? It's not by just a fluke. I was the first chairperson of the Energy Committee of the party, the MMD. I put a team of professionals together to do the program of reform in the energy sector. And these were people like Mr. Skasote, Grievous Skasote, the Honorable Grievous Skasote. We had the people like Robinson Mwansa, the late Eva Jenny. I had the professionals together, Mr. Sampa, Roman Sampa. They assisted the chairperson because we had a working committee to put the paperwork together. And then the late Dr. Matthias Mpande and the Honorable Skasote said to me, listen, this back document, President Chiluba is very busy. He will not be able to plow through it. And he may not understand what we're talking about, because we're talking about privatization, common carriers, how to do the policies. And I said, you see, immediately you talk about privatization, you scare the presidency. So we did a one-page.
A summary of all the hard
things. It wasn't about the detail. It was a catchphrase. Energy is to an economy what blood is to a body.
Wow.
And they told me, you go and deliver it. So I took it to him. And the first time he looked at it, it's very interesting. My sister, you also want a job? I didn't understand. You know, as a young person, you are just being carried on. I've been told by my team today. I said, sir, I don't need a job. If you think that I need a job, you can give this to someone else and we can assist from the committee. He smiled. And the first Minister for Energy was the Honorable Alfeo Hambai, a fine man. He was like my elder brother. And the president said, Edith, you are the one who brought this issue. If you don't justify the viability of this ministry, I'll scrap it at the end of the year. He gave us 1 year.
It didn't exist under Dr. Kaunda?
No.
Oh, it was a the first time. Oh, okay.
In 1 year later, he says, no, I now understand what you meant. Because we did the registration for water, we did the registration for the private sector. What people are talking about, all these, there were no feeding stations, there was only the Six Sisters. In fact, they fought the Zambian inclusion. And that's the problem. When we tell President Hakainde that, listen, the international community doesn't want Zambians to prosper, he thinks we are joking.
Yeah.
My experience as Minister of Energy is they are open for anyone to see. Mr. Lishomwa was at BP.
Yeah.
And they were exiting BP by retirement. And he came and said, listen, I want to set up an oil company. And we had done the registration. Who came to say no at the office? It was the Six Sisters, BP, Shell. They were here, Total.
Yeah, they
and
used to be called the Six Sisters at the time.
And they came and said, we can't have this.
A private individual.
I said, no, okay, we are going to have a meeting. I want to hear what you're saying. So I asked my PS, Mr. Roman Sam. I said, if we don't give Mr. Rishoma the license, he can't go to London and get a license.
Yes.
Let me tell these groups that it can't happen under my watch. So when we came to the meeting, I asked them, I said, can Mr. Rishoma go to London and get a license? He said, no. So why? They couldn't answer. I said, if Edith Nawakwi, his young sister, can't give him a license, who will? You understand?
Yeah.
And I said, you walk out. If you don't want, close your stations. Mr. Rishoma is starting his company today. Mr. Sampa, please issue the license.
Wow.
You can ask him. That was the first Zambian-owned private
energy company.
The rest is history. We have energy people dealing in solar, in power stations. We created the concept of a common carrier, the concept of a power pool. And people think that Edith Nawakwi is intelligent. No, I had smart people around me. You just have to listen.
And I think that's what leadership is about.
You just have to listen.
Don't lecture the experts. Listen to the experts.
Listen. And this is my problem with this current presidency. When he stands up and keeps talking
before we come to review, we are reviewing President Hakainde Hichilema, his government and successes and failures later. The hallmark of the MMD in its transformational agenda was that it brought privatization, because our economy was state-owned, I think up to 80%. And privatization program, I think, tried to reduce state participation in the economy. That has brought transformation, a lot of changes, but has also been blamed for example, the first loss of jobs and the deindustrialization that took place because most of the partners were not honest. What are your reflections over the privatization program? In fact, we had different views. Part of the agenda for change was created before we took office. Every sector had a program, like I've described the energy sector. The finance people had the program, which was agreed in cabinet, that for us to get rid of the debt overhang, we needed to do structural reform. I want you to know that at the time I took over as Minister of Finance, we had salary bills from the copper mines of over $1 million per month. And we were losing money on a daily basis. And no money was coming. The productivity of the mines had just collapsed because there was no new money coming in. Anglo-American was not putting in any new money. Investment. And there was this wave around the world under the IMF and the World Bank that people had to move from command economies to liberalized economies. And therefore, to access the funding on the World Bank and IMF window, you had to liberalize. That is the backdrop on which we come in. And therefore... and also there was a failure, for example, of Russia, in the geopolitics. Yes. And all of a sudden, socialism and state participation looked bad. Looked ugly. But there were some of us who said we needed to adopt the Chilean model, where you reduce ownership for some... maybe up to 49%. You don't and if people want to be honest, they will tell you that Nawakwi has never been a wholesale sale.
I still believe that we have to have a private and public ownership of resources. For one reason, government is not the best manager.
Yeah.
You have the assets, let the best assets be managed by other people. And I brought to the table the case of Botswana Power Company. They were being managed by the Irish board, the Irish Electricity Board. And I said, that's a model. And some of the shares that you see, which were left in some of the companies, if you go back to the record, you find that I'm the one who signed up on those. Some of my other colleagues wanted outright sale. But the truth is that we went to the extreme. We should have had a middle way. We need to understand that public and private ownership is what works. Extreme capitalism, even Adam Smith says, is useless.
Yeah.
That's why he introduces welfare economics. And coming from that background, you say it can't work if you go to either extreme. We have to find a middle road. And it's this middle road that we are now finding. Yes, there was complete loss of jobs. We had companies like Superloaf. Bread is not being produced, but people are on the payroll. We had companies like UBZ. Most of the vehicles off the road, but you have a yard and all that. The company which I thought should not have been sold, because at the time, I think the World Bank would have financed our lease of about $2.5 million, was Zambia Airways.
Yes, yes.
We could have restructured, but it went that way. So, yes, we went to the extreme, but over time, we picked up. We came at a time when even holding $1 was an offense.
Yes, yes.
It
criminalized.
was seated. My late uncle used to work for seated, so I know the details of that, where they would chase people at night. And it was an offense a criminal offense to hold $1 because you'd be called an economic saboteur. And President Chiluba said, I cannot have this. I remember he says we are really broke. There was absolutely no money. I mean, I came to be Minister of Finance in 1997-98. The day I went in, there wasn't even $50,000 to pay a bill. We had to borrow from Citibank. It was that bad. So how did President Chiluba manage that vacuum? He was bold enough to stand up and say, listen, if you're a Zambian or a foreigner, you come to Zambia with money on your head in a basket, you take it out. And you know what happened. Yes. We sat in cabinet and said, there's no transport. How can we manage this? And we said, please, no taxes on vehicles. We argued it. And the beauty about our cabinet was the president was a silent participant. When
he wasn't a lecturer. No, he wasn't a dominant participant.
When President Chiluba saw that the ministers were not agreeing, he would say, truce. Then you say, Minister and your colleague, can you follow me to the offices? What is the issue? Why can't you give in to your colleague? I'm telling you, he brought the skills of trade union negotiations to cabinet. And he's not the type who instructed you to do something. He always looked for creative ways to do things. So it is in that ministers were allowed to operate and work. I remember there was a day when I proposed that we impose a 3% surcharge on electricity because I realized I wanted to electrify the compounds. And there was no money. When you go to Minister Kasonde, he says, my sister have no money. Your project is really not even going to be viable. So I went to the late Honorable Kashita. I said, my brother, you are an engineer. Help me. What do I help? I said, I want to go to cabinet and say that we impose 3% such as on electricity consumers. That money, this is a cash flow. Because I go to the professionals, how much money would I raise in a year? And we came up with $12 million. This is enough for me to electrify all the townships. And markets.
Because at the time it was normal for Chawama Kanyama not to have power.
Yes, so and how am I going to do it? I'm an energy economist. How am I going to do it without money? I have to be creative. the only people I had to convince was not the chairman of cabinet, but my colleagues. So I recruited the Honorable Kashit. And when I argued, they said, no, you can't work, people will riot. Honorable Kashita said, let my sister try this. Minister, it's just an SI and we go. And with that, I didn't have to wait for $12 million to be in the coffer.
Yeah.
It was a cash flow. I talked to ESCOM and said, at the end of the year, we'll be giving you this much. Can you help us electrify the markets? And within 6 months, abracadabra, we had markets all over the
country.
Lights.
That well,
yes,
you know that I worked in the
it.
provinces, in Eastern Province, and I found this
Nawakwi
tall light. They call it Nawakwi light. And it hadn't worked, I think.
Can you imagine a little girl at that time convincing the CEO of ESCOM, such a big utility, to actually work with a young girl who's a minister? What is the issue? It was nice. You know, I look backwards and really admire working under elderly persons who could mentor one. We had people like Uncle Simon Zukas, Walker Shita. You sit with them, they tell you this doesn't work. And one key person in what you see is a bright journey of Edith Nawakwi was ABC Chikwan.
Yeah, Honorable Chikandra, yes.
He was at State House. When you took a memo to cabinet, if you want to present a good memo, consult him off record.
I see.
You were advised. And he took special interest, making sure that my work was conforming with cabinet requirements.
Because sometimes it can be rejected on procedure.
Of course.
Or even on language.
None of our memos from our ministry where I sat was rejected, because I had people like Mr. Roman Sampa, a seasoned civil servant. I mean, those people still are around. They can help this government. They are non-partisan. They will tell you, Minister, you want to do this? This is our advice. If you insist, they will tell you, we are going to inform Mr. Adamson. And by the way, Mr. Adamson is our boss.
Secretary to cabinet.
But the secretary to cabinet has a boss who is also your boss. So, you know, him and us will beat your steps. You had no way of ignoring professionals. I don't know these ministers who have now become the owners of ministries. I just laugh. That's why they are making so many mistakes. Yeah. A minister is not a signatory to a checkbook. He's a policy maker. The handbook is very clear. Maybe they've even bent the handbook. So our time was very good. You credit MMD with the good things and the bad things, but the core of it was that the chairman of cabinet was not an all-towering person. He allowed us, he would say, listen to the minister, listen to each other. And when he couldn't bear the noise, he would say, I think it's time for us to have a break. But you know who is going to go for lecturing.
Yes,
it's
the two protagonists. Yes.
May I understand what the issue is?
Let's walk to your opposition politics. You were a cabinet minister. I think you rose against intentions by your boss, President Frederick Chiluba, to apparently go for a third term. And I think it resulted in the culmination of you now forming a political party. I think there were two major ones, Heritage Party and FDD with General Tembo. Then you participated in elections, I think, in Munali. You won with a landslide. Your opposition work in politics. Just speak to that. Up to the time now you meet President Hakainde Hichilema in 2006, because then we begin to narrow down to his reflections as a president and as a leader.
You see, we had the first term of President Chiluba was excellent. The second term, I personally, I don't know about others, felt that the people outside cabinet had begun to interfere in the management. And this relates to the management and sale of the mines. I think you recall that at some time my late brother, the Honorable Penza, was removed and I was put minister. And I got to understand the behind-the-scenes operations in the management of the transactions. There were people like late Francis Kaunda, may so rest in peace, who seemed to be stronger than the ministers. I think there were a couple of times that there were flares between himself and my late colleague, including myself. He's not here, but in his book he portrays me as a villain who even wanted to privatize the mines on one side. But
this is Francis Kaunda, his book, Selling the Family Silver.
Yes. And I recall one afternoon I called him, because we had agreed at the Paris Club that when we come back, we were going to have a reconvening of the Kafue Consortium. And by some surprise, I woke up that day, everybody was away, Mbazima. Everybody who was supposed to be in the team was conveniently out. I was the only one left. Not present. I ended up giving tea to 9 vice presidents. And yet we had made a commitment in Paris Club that we were going to do it. So when he came back, I called him and I told him that as an elder person, I didn't expect him to undermine the minister and the country in that context. And I understand why he writes like that, because I'm probably the only one who saw his tears, because he says, you are my daughter, you can't be talking to me like that. I said, no, but you are undermining your daughter. This is about the country. And you conveniently leave the negotiations, and you know you are the key person. He was the chairperson. So we leave that. And then the second term of our presidency and our government was not very smooth, because we have a time
1996 to 2001.
Yes, we had a time when the International Monetary Fund and them, they packed their bags and went as usual. They said that there were 2 issues: torture of my late brother Dean Muomba and burning of
after the coup, 1997 coup.
Yes,
but it was about the mines and other factors.
Well, they wanted the mines. The truth is also there was torture in the police. And the Honorable Malambo and myself, we went to the States and they admitted that yes, there was torture, because the Zambia police are a brutal force. Are a brutal force. That's what the British left. So give us money. I even produced videos of inside the prisons. I was very transparent. You know, when you are open, people understand. And they said, oh, we understand.
Then deny
what do you want? I said, we want to governance money for the police and the judiciary. I think later you see some facilities such as the new Chikwa courts. It comes out of that. But on the burying of President Kaunda, we told them at the State Department, when do you think, if we're going to go back to the archives, when do you think my colleague Malambo and I will be presidents? We are here. This man was in the office for 27 years. And you are insisting, you Americans, you change governments every 4 years, but you want Africa to be having... And I said to them, which they remembered, when my president said that he wanted a 3rd term, I reminded Ambassador Carson and Susan Rice then that what will, if they say that President Kaunda should be allowed
to come back,
what would they say if President Chiluba also
wishes to come back?
And I'm telling you, when it was 3rd term, they were the first ones to come and say, Minister, you were right. I said, now help us. Help us now. That's what I told you. So now there's this fight for the 3rd term. And we have to stop it. Because we gave to ourselves only 2 5-year terms.
To each
it's
president.
A covenant. It's sacrosanct. So we can't break it. But we didn't do it out of spite. Myself, the Honorable Nguni, and the Honorable Akimu Nkole, and the old man Sampa, we asked our old man to come along with us to Nkwazi to tell our president.
You faced President Chiluba?
Yes, we did. We did. You can ask Honorable Nguni. We went there and told him that we're not going to support him because we were some of the young people he was depending on intellectually and also royalty. When you are loyal to a friend, tell them you can't go along with them because of what
on this path.
We went to Nkwazi. He said, no, it's not me, it's other people. And Basampa says, there should be a witness, an elder person. We told him we are not going to support you. And that's what we did. So that's how we went to organize. From the following day, the same team went to see the vice president.
General Christian Tembo.
We told him, you have to resign. And you see, people were selfless. Can you imagine vice president leaving his post?
I remember he
says, who else
came
is
to an
coming?
opposition rally, to an anti-third term rally as vice president with motorcade.
Yeah, because we had brokered it. We were smart kids. And then we went to our elder brother, Bomianda, Minister of Education.
At the time, yes.
And you know, the humble man from Vice President, Minister of Education. And he did a good job. We said, the Vice President has agreed, you also have to come along. We had the key people. So we broke the tie. Before we knew it was 22 or 24 cabinet ministers out.
Yeah.
But it takes one or two people with foresight. And when everybody sees this is the way we are going,
and sincerity.
They will come. They will come because we are sincere. Does the president know? We told them, ask Uncle Sampa. You remember the old man, Stalin? Ask Uncle Stalin. We nicknamed him Stalin. And he would confirm to them,
Sampa.
Yes. And that's how we did it. Before we knew, it was a movement. It was a movement.
We come to 2006. You know, Honorable General Tembo had led you to the 2001 election, has since, I think, retired, and you have taken over as FDD president, and you are marching towards Zambia having the first female president.
Can you imagine? I make the first mistake of my life.
How is that a mistake?
Because that I attribute it to the decline of the popularity of FDD. I didn't realize that, we went to the convention, and there was a resolution that we needed to go into an alliance with another political party to take out MMD.
Yeah.
It was a noble cause. So as an individual, even though I had personal aspirations, I couldn't put my aspirations.
You're willing to subordinate.
Yes, I tried. And I said, this gentleman, I know him. But the UPND said, when we were with the late Anderson Mazoga, it was okay, plain sailing, very respectful person. Whenever I wanted to make a decision, you just see him at the gate, my sister, what do we do with this? Let's do this. And then his passing was, it was something. From nowhere, there's this man, because he's from the executive, he has money, and we spent a lot of time bickering. So I made a decision that let not this country say that Edith Nawakwi was in the way of the national good. So I called him to our residence in Roma. I said, sir, my brother, Hagainde, let's go to announce that you are the leader of UDA. It was done at my residence, but that was the last day he ever stepped there. And from there, I began to see my misery.
Why were you bickering? What were the issues?
The issues were, this is a new man from the boardroom.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything about politics. He can't take us anywhere. Ideally, I should have been the next one.
Yes, yes.
And, our joining into UDA, most of the candidates who were supposed to stand on our ticket, like, you remember Bakazabu?
Yes,
Deputy chairman
Richard
for
Kazabu.
FDD. Hakainde says, no, he can't win in Ghana, and puts Bachisanga from Lusaka. I was opposed to a mayor of Kitwe. And they simply moved to PF. We, as FDD, contributed to the first batch of members of parliament for PF, because they were not adopted in our party, and they found home in their new...
They couldn't go to UPND.
We had said 50 each. I ended up with 32. Even strong candidates like the State Council, Jifumu Banda, they were being told, no, he can't win Chasef. We are losing Chasef. I'm telling you, the boardroom skill
You had a
came
raw
to,
deal.
the boardroom skill, if that's called a skill, came to the table, and it was a complete fiasco. So you saw what came out of it, and that was the beginning, because at that point they adopt most of our candidates, they go this way, that way.
And they weakened the party.
Yes, of course, and that's it. So I realized then that we had to rebuild the party. And, we have tried over time to rebuild the party. I think you saw we ran in 2016, and we are still here. So, and we are still governing, because government is not just about those who are in the office. It's also those who are in the opposition.
That's
what is government. And that's the definition
now
of
that's
government.
what brings me to President Hakainde Hichilema. Over time, he spent time in opposition. You collaborated with him, you didn't collaborate with him. Now he's president. He's been president for 2.5 years. We are facing, I think, the worst economic crisis in the last 30 years, similar to what you were talking about in the 90s. We have health outbreaks, cholera, anthrax, dysentery, typhoid, even syphilis, diseases we thought were gone. We have the highest cost of living, in our country. Then we have these legacy issues: unemployment, poverty, poor housing. We are literally sitting on a huge crisis. And here is a man who was Mr. Fix-It, who was a panacea to every problem. He said he would resolve it, he would fix it. What are your reflections about President Hakainde and his 2.5 tenure?
Actually, when he was campaigning, I am on record that this man is a novice, that he doesn't understand how to manage anything other than boardroom politics. Because let's face it, from university to maybe Deloitte and Touche to Grant Thornton, as a managing partner, what are you doing? Are you managing? What are you managing? There is a team of professionals who are doing paperwork, bringing to you. You are just signing. So technically, Hakainde Hichilema has never been exposed to public administration. So when he says he's the Mr. Obama, that's far from it. Just tell me one. I mean, I can tell you that I've worked at North Mid Market. I've been a public servant. I know general orders. I know, I know what a politician should and should not do in government. One of the things that a politician should not do in government is to take a pen and sign on a checkbook for the state. I know that the job of a president is not to approve every payment, but he's running this country as if he were running Grant Thornton. So when you say what are his reflection, go back to what I have said. I think it's fair to say that this was a mistake. His coming into office is a major political accident for this country. And we need to find a way out of this accident. Because he comes in not to save the people, but to save his cronies, himself, his family, and his friends. I don't understand how you can actually go to bed and have a peaceful night when he hails from Grant Thornton. That's what is known, that he was the CEO of Grant Thornton. Privatization, he was doing it as a CEO of Grant Thornton. Now he is president. He takes his friend, who is his successor at Grant Thornton, Kazilimani, and puts him as the alternate KCM liquidator.
From Celine Nair.
You are talking about Celine Nair. Celine Nair is just an employee of the Attorney General's chambers. So basically from his friend Kabesh, they've sat, they've connived and say, who is the best person for us to put there who save our interests? And the CEO of Grant Thornton, Kazilimani, who is a bosom friend of Hakainde Hichilema. Either the business goes to Half-Life, Grant Thornton, or to a company where he has interests. Really, even if we say that this is a matricial society, and for me, I was Minister of Agriculture. I was groomed by people like Ron Randless. They'll come to my office, Minister, this is what you need to do to support the commercial sector, but madam, you also have the small-scale farmers. This is what we can do. This is what we can do. And when we are meeting, for example, the people from the World Bank, I would even have commercial farmers come in and small-scale farmers come in. And because we have agreed as a team, we would be talking the same language. This is what our people need. This is what we need. We just need good policies and that. We have wheat in the silos, but Minister, you've allowed these people to import wheat. And then I go to them and say, no, first buy wheat from my farmers. You see that you are working without self-interest. But when you are a corrupt leader, you put policies in place that only save your interest. And I don't understand how we could have a non-Zambian. So I'm not saying that this country, I've said that I was groomed in the agriculture sector by people like Charles Harvey, Ron Randless. You know, who tell you the commercial sector can go this way and this is what we need to do for doing this. So I am a believer of Zambians who were born here. They are our relatives. They can't go anywhere. So I would want to see Charles Harvey to be a board member of Mpulungu Harbor. You understand? It's not like we are short of Zambians who can
because on Mpulungu Harbor they brought someone from Brentes Foundation from South Africa.
The people who funded him. Can you, Ambassador Mwamba, be a chairperson of South African Brentes?
No, not at all.
You can't. But this is inferiority complex. Hakainde is suffering from an inferiority complex. That's why he has populated his office at State House with non-Zambians. And not only non-Zambians, people who save his interest. Because Anglo-American, they looted our nation. They made their first dollar here. They wanted to close the mines. I was minister when Jack Holmes wanted to liquidate KCM. And I told him, so you think that it's worth $1? Here's $1. Go out. And I told them, I want them by the time you get to the airport, because they wanted to put the facilities under liquidation, then they come and pick up the assets for nothing. I told them, listen, by the time you fire your jet there, the mines will be flooded. You pick nothing. It's either you agree with me or you don't. I cowed them. And I told him, I said, listen, you made your first dollar here. Morally, you have to agree with what I'm saying, that let's put a team to give us a report on what is going on in the mine so that we can be able to sell. And the people were sitting outside. I remember my late brother Penza said, my sister, please work hard. I'm here if you need me to come to that meeting. I said, okay, I'll deal with these people, but I'll call you. Mazoka on the side of Anglo-American. And I called him aside. I said, you're a Zambian.
Because
these people, tell them to agree with what I'm saying. He lives... Hakainde is a member of that. They take the best asset, the pension fund, and put it in Half-Life. You understand? And who is the chairperson of that? Who is the owners? Hakainde Chilema, Valentine and Chilamunupia Hantuba. And yet they were telling me that it's a deal breaker, not to move. If we didn't move the funds from Mukuba Pension Fund to Satunya Regina Foundation, according to Anglo-American, they walk away, it's a deal breaker. Who is telling me that? It's not Anglo-American, it's Valentine Chitalu. And the next day, they are chairman. This, for me, annoys me. The unbridled greed and corruption in these young men is unprecedented. And you see, so a person like that in the face of power, that's why he's abusing it. Whether it is at DPP, whether it's the Attorney General, Minister of Justice,
when you
he's
say
populated.
there are foreigners at State House, many people will not understand. I think you mean the presence of Tony Blair Foundation
Yes.
and Brentes Foundation
Yes.
as part of the advisory team.
Why?
Who are actually even now being paid by the state.
But this stinks. And Mr. Blair, get out of our country. Your forefathers colonized us. And you've come here to mislead this young man. The end of yourself and your people at State House is not good. Because you were Prime Minister. You were our partner. And now you've changed the route. You are advising the young man in a wrong way. Brent Hest is very clear. It's a financial motive, including Tony Blair. His Tony Blair Foundation. That's a scheme for making money. And anyway, it's very embarrassing. It just shows inferiority complex that 60 years on, you can go to Britain and ask for advisors. As if you don't have Zambians. We have Zambians at NASA. We have Zambians at a very important international organization. We have Zambians. Listen, if you want advice, call Adesina, the president of ADB. He will give you smart Zambians. There are Zambians all over the globe running financial institutions who can advise these people. Now that's his level. If he can have Levi Ngoma as his political advisor.
I look at KCM and Mopani, and President Edgar Lungu, I think, had done something good for our country. That they were moved for the first time, I think, in 60 years, that these now were owned by Zambians under ZCCMIH. Many hoped that we will provide capacity to ZCCMIH, which is already $1 billion company, then ZCCMIH to run Mopani and KCM, especially in the light, of prospects for copper, cobalt, and gold, all these things that will drive the world. You expected us that we have an opportunity to take interest. But we've given KCM back to Vedanta. Mopani has been sold to a company no one is aware of. Even their profile on the internet is very, very thin. They are not known in any mining sector, or their mining background is not known. What are your reflections of our national assets?
You see, basically, they are looting. I compare Hagainde and his team to the wicked sons of Eli. They are eating their flank. That's why when you look at them, they don't care. Just observe them. They don't care. It doesn't matter what you say, how hard you say it. They don't listen. KCM and Konkola Deep, that's our soul. And they were given that asset for 25 million by late President Mwanawasa. May he so rest in peace. There was an uproar in the house. Now, for a person who is calling himself Mr. Fix-It, to be honest, I thought I had doubts about his capacity to manage the country. That's why I supported President Lungu. Because I said he's doing exactly what I want. He's getting my assets back into my fort. And the other reason I supported the PF and President Lungu specifically was my dream of Kazungura Bridge.
How is it your dream?
Because when I went to Japan under TICAD 2, President Mohae called me and said,
Of Botswana, yes, at the time.
He said, President Chiluba is not here. My sister, Minister, is it okay? I'm seeing the Prime Minister that I can say that the two countries want this bridge. I haven't called my colleague. Do you think, I said, please go ahead, I'll brief him. And for me, when the money for the studies was put, when I came to brief my president, he says, oh, wow, I'll call my brother. And that's how it started. Because you create something, like an illusion, and you see it happen.
Yeah.
And I said, I wanted to be president so that I do that bridge. And this man has done the bridge. He is my brother. He has taken back KCM from these crooks. He's my brother. I want him. Because I was looking forward to a day when Zambia has enough money. And you see, cash is not something you have in a pot. Cash is your intellect and the physical assets you have. Right now, KCM is cash.
Yeah.
You can package. The problem that I have seen is that these people don't have people who can package projects. You can package KCM and raise money on its own. Suez Canal. How many billions did they raise to expand the Suez Canal?
Over a narrative. Yeah.
Yes. Did they have cash?
No.
No. You just have smart kids. I said earlier on that I raised $12 million per annum for electricity, including the road fund. That was my brainchild. We increased the price of fuel. When we reduced, I said, sir, may I have this curtain quatch? And I remember a minister, and I, please, because my idea was that fund, we should open up Nabwalia. And then when I went to China to negotiate for debt rescheduling, I told the Chinese government, I said, my friends, may I have equipment for ZNS? Meanwhile, I have fuel here. So I can pass fuel to ZNS and ask them to open up rural areas. I may not be smart, but at least creative. And you need a president who can have a creative team around them. Because Mopani is a liquid asset. This day and age, you don't need people coming with bags of money to put in your mine. You just need to be creative and raise that money. I made a statement that with the problems that we are having, climate change, weather, and the hunger in Zambia, please go to the African Development Bank and get emergency agriculture financing. President of ADB came here. What did they get? $5 million. And I'm sure that's what President Desina can take out from his base. Because if he has no document, he can give you $150 million. It's there, it's free, it's a grant. But who in that state house, can Mutoro sit down with his staff and do a proposal for funding? I'm telling you, President...
Do you think that over the years there's been a degeneration, for example, of intellect leadership? I think the best brains seem to have left the politics, and the issues of merit doesn't arise, and the people sometimes that occupy these positions do not realize the importance of using technocrats. I'm saying this because you have President Hakainde Hichilema, who is very educated. He comes with his education. But if you look at the number of people that are packed at PSMD, fired or dismissed or packed on their sessions that they were hired by the Patriotic Front, imagine the waste of first inherent skills, institutional memory, and just the skills, because it takes a long time to educate these people.
Yeah, you know, it's not like this country is short of brains. It's short of children who can sit down and do a proposal. I have interacted with professionals like young Chulu. She was at Comesa, assisting the head of Comesa. That's your contact. That's your network. She's doing packaging of projects for ADB, for this, for that. That is the person you need to be the assistant to the president. But then you have children who have just graduated out of universities. They are our children, all right. You say this one. And there's nothing they can offer you. Dr. Musokotwane, he understands what I'm talking about, because there are a lot of grant funds in the world. A lot of them. You pick weather, you pick this, you pick HIV, AIDS, you pick women, fistula, or whatever. There is money. Even equipment, you can get it. If you're a friend of the Americans, you can go to the American ambassador and say, every year in America, every 2 years, they mothball equipment from hospitals. They just need to organize transport and bring scanners here. But if a minister goes to China to get money from the Chinese government to buy surveillance equipment, if the president himself gets £1 million from the British High Commission to do something else, totally away from his core business, can you imagine £1 million could buy us 4 or 5 CT scans at UTH? If you say to the People's Republic of China and say, our friends from the East, we don't have MRIs. You built Levi Mwanawasa Hospital. We don't have PET scans. Are you telling me that our friends who have been so generous can deny us that? But their focus is different. Their focus is their pockets. Even when they do legislation, it's about themselves. The reason you have an unbearable offense for Keto is the major beneficiary of that is himself. You understand that? He's a major beneficiary of that. You and I don't have heads of Keto which can be. If you wrestle 2, 3.
Yeah, you're speaking to the new law that was passed an amendment.
Yes, who's the beneficiary? Why just cattle? Why not chickens?
Stocks,
why not dogs and cats? Why just specifically cattle? Why not game? People are wrestling game. In Chisamba here, the farmers are in trouble. Why not include the game? Because why not include the center pivot pieces? Have an agricultural neighboring legislation, an anti-theft agriculture. I'm telling you, commercial farmers are suffering. Every day, center pivot is being stripped. And you have a president who takes the police from Lusaka to go and guard his cattle. When he's on holiday, he takes a battalion of police officers. We understand that even his farms are being guarded around by policemen. The police officer, Mr. Msamba, will say, no, that's not true. But what the eye can see, you can't deny the eye. The eye can see anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have an eye, it will see. We see that at a time when there's cholera here in town, the police must be helping us. We've gone through this before. We don't have to recreate. The army, everybody goes out to help, but the police are guarding one man.
Yeah.
He came
you spoke
for
of
himself.
your brother, Honorable Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane is currently in Davos with a large team. You know, those Davos meetings, you probably attended some of them. But he gave incentives to the mining sector. And his motivation, what he has told the country, was that because there's a target of 3 million metric tons of copper that should be mined. But that has depleted domestic revenue for government and for ourselves. And now you see ZRA punishingly very hard on persons, you know, that are running businesses, small businesses. And do you think these incentives are necessary?
Actually, if you read the African Confidential or some report like that, they are saying that his forecast of 3 million won't happen. Even the mines themselves know. For example, he's given Mopani to this obscure company, and I want to say clearly that it is so-called registered in Dubai. It's like an offshore shell company. The real owners are Americans. Those Americans are holding Zambian bonds. And these are the people who have refused to take a haircut. You understand that? If you say, why are the Chinese not forthcoming to play the roulette? They can see what is happening. They are more intelligent than us. Even if you get surveillance equipment from them, they survey us more than the people who are the owners of this obscure company. When you look at that Dubai company, you see a small company with maybe $300 million registered.
It's being affiliated to a bigger company.
Yes,
again, even
it has a bigger company. That bigger company is one of those bondholders for this country. And they are the ones who are refusing to actually give in to what the IMF and the Chinese would want for there to be debt rescheduling for Zambia. So now, if you give your friends that much, you give them Mopani. Then you go to the Chinese and say, can you debt write off? These people are refusing to even help you, are even rewarding them. That's the mentality of Hakainde Hichilema. So when you talk about production in the mines are in private hands. And some of these mines were the funders to Hakainde Hichilema. That's why they agreed that they give them that rebate. It is not just about the rebate. We are losing almost $3 billion per annum. By the time ECL was leaving, we were getting about I think $1 billion per annum from just the mines.
Revenue,
yes. Now, this man comes, Mr. Fix-It, he gives his friends, and then he starts to chase a marketeer on a wheelbarrow. What can only happen is that we reinstate that. And we need to understand, as long as we don't change our policies, where all exports, including mine exports, are on the account of Zambia Central Bank. Whatever we do, we dance, we skid, it won't happen. That's why for me...
The Bank of Zambia has... and they are calling it a trial run, an export proceed tracking mechanism, and it started in 1st January. I think they have to make reports every 3 months. We'll see if it will work.
But
because the exchange rate market has literally collapsed. Our kwacha has depreciated. I think it's now one of the worst 3 in the world.
I mean, inflation is at 47%. In fact, there's one economist report I was reading last evening where an American is saying the inflation in Zambia is 47%. They are tasking the statistics office to justify how it is in the digits that they are talking about, but it's 47%.
Yes, there's a doctor, Professor Henk from Johns Hopkins University.
Yeah.
And they compile, inflation rates and other trade figures annually, and they are doing the compilation, but they have their own measurement. So they measured, and they realized that the official figures being given by
Zambians are cooking them.
Are literally cooking them.
They are cooking them. There's no forex. If you raise a lot of credit, it is stalling to pay it. There's no money in the market. Now they are saying, Mopani is bringing in 80 million, but they are probably bringing it for equipment. And because of the extremely depreciated kwacha, the mines are bringing less dollars to pay their workers. Our people are paid in kwachas. So if they were bringing $1,000 to pay 2 people, they are now bringing $200 to pay.
Yeah, because $10,000 just last year was 170,000 kwacha.
Yes.
The same 10,000 now is 260. So look at the kwacha difference.
So now he says, no, the depreciated exchange rate is good for exporters. What do we export? He wants us to export cow dung. What do we export?
It's copper.
Copper is in the hands of the Brent Haste and whatever. You and I, what do we export? Do we export cow dung or what? Because even feeding a chicken now has become a challenge. The price of feed is extremely high. There's nothing. The dip, which he told me, there is one clip when I said, look, he produces the beef, so let him reduce the cost of beef. He said when he's president, he will reduce the price of dip. It has gone up. It's been going up. So, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, my proposal is this. It's important that we give solutions.
Yes.
My proposal is this. If Hakainde had ears, he would have heard that the trajectory on which he's moving is not going to work. It's going to put the country in extreme crisis. Because the IMF and the World Bank and all his supporters, the Tony Blair, the Brent Haste, their interests are elsewhere. Their interest is that Zambia should be in crisis. Then when you and I are throwing stones at each other, they will then start siphoning our sugilite, our emeralds, our mines. That's the mentality of these people. His friends in State House, whom he has gathered. Check anywhere in South America where IMF was, whether they left a good story. they live chaos.
You interacted with IMF at high level. You attended those Washington meetings. What will be the country's relationship with IMF?
You need to understand that when they are saying debt rescheduling, they are not talking about your debt and I. They are talking about their kith and kin. It is the bondholders, it's the matractors whom we owe money. That's their box. They want you to behave properly so that their kith and kin are paid. You understand that? And who funds the IMF and the World Bank? It's the Americans. So for me, I understood a long time ago, when I faced Mr. Kamdesu and told him, sir, my friend, I was a minister then. I was not a president. Like this president wants to interact with the juniors at the Washington. So I was interacting with my junior, Mr. Kamdesu, because as a minister of finance, you were a director. So you can't have the president saying, no, I have this personal relationship with Georgina. But let's embarrass me. Papa, secretary to treasury and the minister of finance.
To relate with
yes, please now,
Papa.
So I told him, this copper, I took him a caving. I said, this is copper from Zambia. But the youth on the street doesn't understand this. What we need are programs for the youth. Agriculture. I mean, I may not have succeeded, but for me, my passion has been agriculture. And it's very easy to turn around this country if all of us are moving in one direction, agriculture. The challenge we have now is the president, when he sees my face, he sees hate. He says, Chija, I don't know why Edith hates me. That's his complaint.
Are you personal with him?
No. Look.
Is your criticism malicious or is genuine?
No, it's genuine. I have to criticize the office of the presidency. Unfortunately, the occupant is Hakainde Hichilema. And he doesn't listen. That's my problem. He thinks that he's a Bible. He thinks that the best thing that ever happened to this country is himself. He doesn't want to listen to anyone. Because even a child can tell you something. We have a saying in my villages that if you find a person and you think you'll be eaten by a lion. Because he's telling you that there's a lion that side. So a leader listens. A leader is diligent, hardworking, and discerning. A leader is judged by the people around them.
On the agriculture sector, which you are very passionate about, everyone says other than mining, agriculture should be our mainstay and probably will provide the necessary development for this country. What are we doing wrong? What have we done wrong? How come it's not a solution to this country?
Let me ask you a question. When we are hearing about the privatization for years and years, how did we survive? How did we survive? Did we have alternative minerals? No. The only mineral we have is the soil. And President Chiluba, President Rupia Banda, President Mwanawasa, President Lungu, President Sata, they all understood this one concept. And the Bible is very clear. Put out your chariots. Load your food for your soldiers. They don't say, load your God. They say, load food. Soldiers, when they go to war, they have to eat. They have to have medicine lest they are injured. And late Prime Minister Yusuf Wali, when I was his guest in Egypt, he told me, he says, you're a very young person. You've been given Minister of Agriculture. There's a special reason. One, you're a lady. Two, you need to understand that the most important ministry in a country is agriculture. And he was chairman of their party, Minister of Agriculture, and the Deputy Prime Minister. And he privileged me with the projects that they were doing. He opened my eyes. He says, in Egypt, at that time there was massive youth unemployment. He says, let's go to Alexander, let's go to the bush. They had reclaimed 1 million acres of land and settled educated graduates. And he says, not every graduate can be a farmer. Some fail, some succeed. And what they did was they gave each one 2 fedan, which is like 2.5 acres. And they put a house, water, and they realized that these young people kept on going to the city. Then they sat down and said, what do we do to keep them in these enclaves? Because we want to offload close to 1 million of them in agriculture. Then they found the trick. Give them a milking cow. They will need to milk in the morning and the evening, so they won't go to the city. And he said to me, agriculture is not a sector where you need to politic. He says, Minister, let me tell you what I do. After I had toured most, projects, and I found out that the research of the department of the university and the farmers were linked. Because if a farmer picks a diseased leaf, there's an assistant agriculture officer who transmits the information to the next level if they can't solve. By 2 hours, 3 hours, the research department of the university is sending down a solution. And he said, agriculture is not a sector where you politics. He says, this is how I manage it. I call the opposition when we are to harvest. And in Egypt, you could get at that time 13 tons of wheat per hectare.
And this is almost a desert area.
Yes, they had reclaimed the desert. And he says, you see, I am a chairman of a party, so I need to prop up my party as well. But I can't take money from the treasury and pay farmers. The opposition will riot and say you are doing politics. So I call them to the table and say, what do you think we should do with the farmers? He says, not one opposition leader will say don't pay the farmers, because they will be seen as opposing a good thing. So he says, so the agriculture sector that Dr. Yusuf Wadi was running was an inclusive activity with the opposition. What stops these people from saying, Edith Nawakwi, you've been talking about tree planting. You've been talking about beans growing. Mr. Mutolo, honestly, if I go to livestock, the ministers don't even want to answer phones or see you in the corridors. They are scared they'll be fired. I am a former minister of agriculture. That's my place. And I'm a minister of energy. Why would you be telling me that you've hired a PS who must reduce the price of fuel, as if that's the reason why the fuel is high? So the way we have conducted our lives as a nation, where when you go, you are an enemy. When you criticize, you are an enemy, is what is undermining the progress of our republic. I believe that right now, in this country, I'm not boasting, I have the best interest of the farmer at heart, because I've distributed free seed, that is soybeans, sunflower, for free. When others were distributing chitenges, I was giving out sunflower seed. Go to Eastern Province, go to Central Province. They still remember. And I said, look, we can do this. We get 2 hectares of land. We give a farmer 1 hectare as a food crop, finance them fully. We give them another one as a cash crop. It could be sunflower, soybeans. These are oil seeds. It could be tobacco. It could be groundnuts. And what we did when we did that program 2013, 2014, we said we are not coming back to take this. Because I wanted to show that people can take off. If you fund them for 2 years consecutively, and you've told them that after the 3rd year you won't go back, I can tell you, you can take now these agro dealers in that area and they'll be able to deal on their own. Right now, sunflower in Eastern Province has taken off. We are getting the most sunflower cake from Eastern Province. People don't, cooking oil processed doesn't sell in Eastern Province. Most villages have pressers. We need to push that all over the country so that people are better off. So when I talk, they say, oh, They call and say, you were there in MMD. Yes, I was there, so I've got experience. What works and what doesn't work. I'm not in government. I'm telling you, FISIP is what we started. I started it. KK, Katereka Lumba, took on it and increased on the volume with a lot of resistance from IMF. Where it is now, it is unviable. And the way Hakainde is pushing it, it can't work. I would rather...
What are the weaknesses in the changes they are trying to make with FISIP?
They use it as a political program. Oh no, we have given 30 farmers seed. When you go down, you find these 4 bags. Wealth creation is at household level. And we can use the institution of village headmen and the chiefs. We get to a village and say, how many able-bodied people are here? Don't say like Hakainde is doing that, in this household, you've got fertilizer, so your son can't get fertilizer. The son is a husband to the mother. No. The son also has a home, a homestead. So this activity should be how many people are in this household, how many of them are able-bodied.
How many can be productive.
The way President Hassan is doing it in Tanzania, what they are doing right now in Tanzania, and Tanzania is going to be a very large food basket for the region. That's why they are exporting fertilizer to Tanzania. Why? What she's doing is this. She says to the village headmen and the village committee and says, give me people in your village, tell me how many hectares they've done. If you've done 10 hectares, they fund all of it. The government has a certain threshold. They say, if you go beyond the government threshold, we will still support you 50%.
But you ask for a contribution, yes.
Your contribution will be 50%. People are doing 30, 40, 100 hectares with that program. And what she has done also is that she has taken young people, created a hub where there's technology for fixing tractors, for everything, and says, who wants to be a farmer? Because she knows some of the young people are engineers. They're heavy-duty mechanics. You can't tell someone who is driving a bulldozer or a tractor to be a farmer. No, but they can fix. So last year, by the time I counted, she was restructuring 680,000 youths. That's fantastic. For me, that's my president. I wish I could relocate. But this friend of mine, CEC, 50 kwacha each, go and do fish ponds. After ECL left, did you hear the story of fish pond? By this time, it would have been, blown up. But how can he do it? When people are dying, he's heading cattle. When people are dying in the Copper Belt, he's in Dubai, he's selling. What he's selling? He's selling it to a nondescript company. What is wrong with the Minister of Mines going to Dubai and sell? How about the PS and Secretary to the Treasury?
You paint a grim picture of Hakaine's presidency. What are the prospects for 2024? What do you see?
I am saying to my relatives, fellow Zambians, we made a mistake. This was an accident. We need now to say, what do we have? In us, we have resilience. The last thing that I would advise you not to think of is to say that we are a failed state. Just to say we are in transition. And when the children of Israel cried for a leader, he gave them so. But he still knew that there was a David somewhere. There's going to be a David somewhere. The story of Hakainde is the saddest chapter for our country. As far as I'm concerned, he's finished. And all I'm asking Zambians to do is that preserve the peace. Preserve the peace. I know the prices of mini meals are high. I know you could easily think of the worst times that these countries have had, the 1987s. No. This is our land. It's a land of peace. Zambia is oasis of peace. And Zambia is the pulsating heart of Africa. We cannot afford, as a nation, to lose direction because of one man who is disoriented, who is angry, who has no power of discernment in him, who is giving our country to the foreigners.
I listened to before
Zambia
you give that advice. I listened to President Nakaine's last press conference, in which he literally was summarizing his stay in office in the last 2.5 years. He spoke for almost 5 hours, and he gave a glowing picture of his leadership and this country. He cited what he called were successes, free education, CDF, that he has brought peace to this country, while you are pleading for peace, that it should be kept. He gave this glowing picture. Is that a reality? What do you make of that when you hear him speak?
Ambassador, do you read the Bible?
Yes.
Can you tell me the story of Herod?
King Herod, yes.
Can you tell me the story of King Herod? Do you know his attributes? Anger, insecurity. And when Herod is angry, you don't see it. He says to the 3 wise men, "You have come to see Jesus, the king. I would also want to pay homage." Was that true?
No.
He was lying.
He wanted
Hakainde
Jesus
is a
killed.
liar. Everything I see in Herod in the Bible, I see in this leader. And therefore, the attribute of Herod was, "Sing for me." And people start singing. What was his end? You read. You're an avid reader than me. Tell me the end of Herod. Tell me. Consumed by anger and self-deceit and ego. What happened? When people stand to pray, and you have prayer singers around him, exact replica of Herod. We are in Herod's time now. So when he stands to praise himself, I pity him. I say, let's pray for him. Maybe he can see some light. Maybe he can see the humility in the people who built the wall. You get people together, stand and defend the wall wherever you are, because you form the barrier. Because now we are under attack. The wall has fallen. We are under attack. So each one of us is a resident under a city without a wall. We need a leader. We need a Nehemiah. And when he stands to literally utilize himself for hours, I weep. I weep and say to myself, in his own infinite wisdom, as we say in Parliament, God has gave us his son, Hagainde Ichilema. But he gave us the worst son, Herod. And look at what is happening across the board. I was talking about the DPP. This is his lawyer. These are the people who are defending the suspected
treason case.
Of course. And his DPP. And he's issuing fiats like someone on the street issuing something. And you go to the courts of law, those of us who go and sit and listen to the indictments, you weep, because it's as though the DPP doesn't exist. I have been a regular visitor to courts, Chikwa courts. You remember, for a long time, I've never, ever found a situation where literally their justices have to help the prosecution to amend the cases on the floor. You see that? It means the DPP is non-existent, because the job of the DPP is to cross the T's and dots, because by nature of his job, it's a solemn job, sending people to the gallows. So he needs to concentrate, but he doesn't. And I ask Hakainde himself to go incognito in some of those courtrooms, sees the mistakes which the NPA is making there because their DPP is sleeping, and he's sleeping only because he's a friend of the president. Look at the mistakes at Parliament. When,
your sister,
when,
your young
when,
sister.
When I was in the House, and I always say this, I believe we have a finest lawyer in the House. But that job, because she's bidding for Hakainde Hichilema, she has thrown the rules to the wind. When we were members of the House ourselves, we used to be told by late Speaker Nabudiato, Dr. Nabudiato, he says, the Speaker has no ears. When you try to draw him into a discussion, the Speaker has no ears, no eyes, I didn't see. Someone has to stand and say, Mr. Speaker, point of order. Did you hear what so-and-so did? If it is heinous and injurious to the dignity of the House, it is referred to the privileged committee. For that privileged committee has the leader of the House, the opposition, and eminent persons from government. They make a balanced decision and send to the floor of the House for the Speaker to rule on it. They actually rule on behalf of the Speaker. The Speaker is just a spokesperson. Says the committee has said, you are going to be sanctioned like this, like this. Now, this Speaker of ours, she behaves like it's a classroom. Get out, get out. And unfortunately, our members of Parliament, they don't understand their rights. Me, if I were to be sent out like that, like a little child, not even my granddaughter can you send Namonje like that. She would say, no, Grandma, I don't want. I would walk out with the mess. And you and I understand the implication of walking out. You send out 18 MPs out, they march out obediently. Honestly, I walk out with the mess and see if she would continue sitting. Maybe she would sit because she may not understand the implication of the mess being lifted from there. It means you have fallen, Madam Speaker. So the excitement of being in a parliament, in government is not there. I recall days when we used to be young and in that house. We went there as novices. We didn't know how to run parliament, but we spent our times in the library. When the Honorable State Council, Malambo, Siluamba start to speak, you could hear a pin drop. Bo Joshua Lumina, those people could be on the floor of the House for 4 days filibustering. They don't even know filibustering. So, you just hear. No, this one expelled. It's just a complete circus. So it's a reflection of the leader. Because essentially the leader of that National Assembly is the president. And every institution you tend to, he's turned it into a circus. And don't talk about the public service. So, for me, the solution...
In fact, before you come to the solution, that's what I wanted to say. Zambians are looking at President Hakainde Hichilema and his tenure, and they're beginning to realize it could have been a mistake, like you've stated, that he has failed. They hope he may change in the next 2.5 years, but he may not. And they're looking at the opposition. And the opposition appear in disarray. We don't appear to be together or to be the credible solution to President Hakainde Hichilema. What would be your word of advice, encouragement? Because you are the vehicle in which President Hakainde Hichilema can be replaced.
Actually, we are very credible. Unless you are telling me that I'm sitting on this platform and what I'm saying is not credible. I'm saying the facts, that this was a mistake. And don't force us in this country to start saying that 7 men have failed. And maybe it's time now for a mother to hold the baby. We don't want to go that far because the pain is uniform. Male, female, young or old, youth, the pain is uniform. It's really painful that you can at this day and age say that we are sending our patients to Tanzania. They were behind us. They were behind us. The pickup was way behind. So all we need is leadership. And Hakainde is doing everything possible to annihilate any voice. That's why I am in court. If you charge me with a criminal offense, the end result is that you want to send me to Mukobe. Abduction is a very, very heavy charge. Abducting human beings is a penal offense. And he fabricates it. And his DPP authorizes a fiat. So they've created institutions around themselves to muffle and annihilate the opposition. Now, when that happens, we are back to 1990. I'm telling you, we couldn't organize. We started the Chachacha welfare, where I'm here and I'm there. There were no phones. There was no online streaming.
There was no WhatsApp.
So the more he doesn't see what is happening, the more surprised he's going to be. Because he shouldn't think that he's very smart, using the Inspector General to... In fact, it's good that they think that we are not campaigning. Me, I love it. Voila, I love it. Because that's the art of foolishness. And I hope you can read the Art of War. You need to know what your enemy is up to. When you're on the hill and your enemy is in the valley, they can't climb. So the opposition look like they are in the valley, they are in the trenches. But you don't know what they are planning. You don't know what they are planning. And because the nation knows that Hakainde has stifled the opposition, the press is stifled, everybody now is alive to the fact that this was a mistake. Because there are people like Madam Scotland. She came here to birth this government. Unfortunately, she birthed a stillborn. And I'm challenging them, come back here, let's talk. The Commonwealth is about democracy, free press, free assembly. And this is stillborn. Hey, we can't even bury it. Come here, we talk. The Americans, their mantra is free press, democracy. Is this the democracy that Biden wants? I mean, shame on Biden that he is sitting in America and watching a catastrophe forming in our country. And they're quiet because this is their brainchild. They clapped, no, because he doesn't like the Chinese. And foolishly we followed. But where are we now? We are back being given to my $15 million when others are getting billions of dollars. There's no African country which is developing without Chinese money. Now, that kind of lack of foresight is Herod is...
King Herod once again.
Yes. And there are many like that, Nebuchadnezzar, all of them. They are a group. So they think they are in charge, but they have nothing. They'll be consumed by worms. And for me, when you say, what is the way forward? In 1990, did we ever think we could unseat Super K?
No, not at all. Not at all.
We started by saying,
totally
we
unthinkable.
small people in the market.
Because, even when I look back, Dr. Kaunda was this statesman, global statesman.
So strong.
Respected in Washington, respected in Moscow, respected in Peking at the time. Was a frequent flyer to London. And to see that the people rose and replaced such a man, So
now, if you consider the love of the nation of Super Ken, and the greed in Hakainde Hichilema, is it difficult to replace him?
No, not
it's
at all.
not.
Because Keke was selfless.
People have seen
despite
the greed.
His mistakes, despite Keke's fallings and failings.
He educated us. He gave us, ZCCM was the breast.
For
it was
our
the
country.
education. And that's a point I made to the people in the West. I said, you people, you even want to take Kabelenga Guest House. It's our Camp David. Because these so-called buyers wanted even all the assets, including non-combining assets. I said, but why would you take a guest house where the president has to go and raised? Would you sell your Camp David? So if you say in 1990, we could whisper in toilets. Now I can do WhatsApp. I can do anything. I can be on air. Is it difficult to remove a despotic leader now? In Africa, we have removed good leaders. Rupiah Banda was removed. ECA was removed. We've changed governments which are performing, which are building bridges and airports. What has he built? He hasn't even built one toilet. What is his value? Look, they are singing about Consuls Development Fund.
CDF.
That was started by Honorable Newton Nguna and Ernest Mwansa.
In
If they really
1996.
wanted to know how to implement that, they should have called those two people, maybe and myself, or maybe not even myself, because that was a scheme to help MPs take something back to the constituents. Because when I read the budget as minister, and they call me in Nakonde, minister, now to Afora Kunakonde, there was not even one kwacha for Nakonde. So when my colleagues were starting that CDF, it was for small projects in the constituencies. You can increase it. It does not replace central government. Decentralization doesn't mean littering money in the provinces or districts. How I would do it, and I've always advised is this. In every district, we have a district medical officer, district education officer, district agriculture officer. We even have police officers. Those are the central government functionaries. And by the way, most of them are masters or PhD holders.
True.
So now, Hakainde's vision is that these professionals out of the way. I'm going to give money to the ward committee, and let's take my ward in Inega village. The only educated person there is my young brother. You give him 40 million kwacha, and they say, propose a budget. It has never been schooled in budgeting. What are they going to do? This is why you are setting, you are getting people.
I've always stated that the president doesn't seem to understand decentralization
No,
and
he
local
doesn't.
government.
He doesn't.
Because he assumes that CDF is
It's decentralization.
Yeah.
And his friends in America are saying, no, grassroots. Because the Americans and these people in the West, they will sing your song when they see you are foolish. You know, for me, what I would have done, I would have taken that money, handed it over to the local authority.
Which has
And
expertise and democratic structure.
Some local authorities don't have the requisite staff. But tell the central government functionaries in each district that they are the development committee. And we did that in Kalingalinga when I was MP for Munali under Zamsif. I did the Kalikiriki police station. I did a number of projects. But how we did them, we got Father Thomas Banda to be the chairperson of the committee. But if we were building a police station in Kalikiriki, we went to the officer in charge and said, please, what facility do you want? Then we went to Works and Supply. Can you provide the supervision and the drawings? And it worked beautifully. So that concept is what you see in the FDD manifesto, that we create wealth at households, but on the platform of professionals. Because if I'm sinking a borehole, I don't need the president to go and sink a borehole in this rain. In this rain, he's running around when he was heading in Kato in the dry season. In this rain, you go to sink a borehole. I mean, I'm former Minister of Energy and Water, for God's sake. You dig at 20 meters, you find water. It's still in the same vein of the sewage system. So what I would do to have full decentralization is to not create any new institutions. Gather all the professionals in a district. They should be under one person. We have the DC, we have the secretary to the council. I would ask the Minister of Finance and the Treasury Secretary to gazette a controlling officer for each district. Because that's the person you need to subvert that money, because that person is auditable. The only office you need to create at local level in the district is the Auditor General's office. You have an auditor there, and you have a person who is qualified to receive money from the Treasury. Not the MP, not the council, because you can't audit them. So if you can call an auditable person who is gazetted, because controlling officers have to be appointed by the secretary to the Treasury. So you say you are accountable for this money, and here are the staff who are going to form the technical team. If you want a school, the district education officer knows where that school has to be, the standards and quality, because you have to standardize. If you want a clinic, the district medical officer, but there is also the Department of Infrastructure in the district. They will control the standards. And when it comes to accountability, there's a person who is auditable by the secretary to the treasurer. That is accountability. And how are they working? They have the councillors. They are also in this committee. They have the MPs, they are also in this committee. And each one knows what their basket is. And they will come to this committee. In my ward, they want a clinic. It is this team that is going to do the drawings. And then you don't need to come to Lusaka to get Garin Combo to authorize, because I have a controlling officer there.
Approved.
And I can tell you, you will decentralize the work, because you and I will know that if I go to Shangomba, I can get a contract there. I don't have to start waiting for central government or some famous constituency, China doing something. No, the professionals, I'm a believer in the public service, in the civil service, and our children have gone to Birmingham to study masters, what. They are just sitting, they can't even read a newspaper. And Hagainde says that that's decentralization. First, to put 30 million in a constituency, but all other projects have come to a standstill. You can't buy medicine for a district. You can't buy books for a district. You can't build a big facility for the district, because I am the first. I am the first. So that I am the first is the conceited behavior of Herod. It is a mark of insecurity, extreme insecurity. And when you have an insecure leader, that leader is always angry, and therefore you can't interact and have discourse about development.
What are your last words? It's been an inspiration. Talk, walk from the 90s to date, prospects for the future, and just what your last words are.
For me, we have the best country on earth. As the colonialists put it, go to Zambia, there's 360 days of sunshine. There's natural pastures which are naturally watered. There's soil which you can pick up, as one of my Israeli friends said. You can put Zambia soil in your mouth. You put one finger in Zambia, you take out 5 fingers. That's what my friend said. It is the best place on earth. And the people of Zambia are patient. They understand when we, the leaders, are taking advantage of them. They know. There is no anxiety about tomorrow. I can assure you there's going to be definite change in 2026. And therefore, what we need is patience. Because when you realize that you have got a road deal, you don't start throwing stones. You begin to make exit strategies. If you make a wrong turn and you were going to Mongu and you end up at Shimabara, you don't start smashing your car. You come back to Lusaka because there's no shortcut and go on the Mongu road. We took a detour with Hagainde Ichirema and his UPND. We have to get back to base the crossroads where we left and take the correct turn. The politics of Zambia have become vindictive because you are dealing with a Herod. Understand that these are biblical times. God, by his own infinite wisdom from time to time, teaches us a lesson that in our selection of leaders, we need to be prayerful. We need to have discernment, to ask God that we need that discernment to provide ourselves a leadership that will lift this country to the glory of God.
Wow, wonderful. What a podcast this is. Madam President, I would like to thank you for coming to this conversation. And I know that the nation will learn a lot of lessons and they will walk the path of hope and success for our country. I wish you well in your political endeavors. And to our dear viewers and listeners, we were hosting Honorable Edith Nawakwi, and it's been a tremendous journey. Until next time, God bless this country. God bless Zambia. Ciao, next time.